Welcome to Lift Your Legacy. My name is Jacob Prupp, father, husband, and rabbi. And each week we bring you an inspiring person or message to help you unlock your inner potential and create change that will impact the future. Thank you for listening, and let's get to it. This is Lift Your Legacy, episode 5. Now imagine for a second you are one of the most compelling speakers in the Jewish world. And you have thousands of people that come from around the world to see you, and you are kind of the man when it comes to outreach and to education. And then suddenly you realize that you're not getting the same joy out of what you used to be doing. And then it becomes like, I really don't like what I'm doing. How do you reinvent yourself in the public eye? So today I have a dear friend of mine and a tremendous speaker and personality, Rabbi Gavriel Friedman, who takes us through his personal journey of going from leading, all of these trips and all of these speeches to really creating a life that was balanced and it was good and it was fulfilling to him now. And there's a tremendous amount of courage and a tremendous personal experience that you get that you don't really see when you just kind of see someone up on stage, because you see the struggles that a lot of us go through and we try to figure out, what I've been doing for the past decade might not be working. And how do I really grow and develop to the next stage of my already successful career? So with no further ado, Rabbi Gavriel Friedman. Rabbi Friedman, tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are at this moment.
So my path is not as interesting as many would want. After I finished the American Army, I went into Yugoslavia and I got lost in the woods, and I met Rav Noach Weinberg there and became frum. But the real story is that I grew up religious my whole life, so it's not that interesting. But basically, to make a long story short...
You're saying growing up religious is not interesting?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
You might as well become secular. What I'm saying is very simply, it's not as excited as a Yom Tov Glazer surfing the world style. But bottom line is like this. I grew up in a religious home, and just fast forward, I got married, studying in Kollel, which is yeshiva, and I was looking for a job. Somebody recommended that I meet with someone in Eish Torah named Jamie Cowland, and I met with him in Eish Torah, not knowing what I was getting myself into. And basically I was looking for a job. That was it. I ended up meeting with him. They gave me some sort of opportunity to work with them, and it went well. And it continued going well. And thank the good Lord, I've been with them now for about 12 years, 11 years actively teaching, 12 years affiliated with Eish Torah.
So amazing. If I could backtrack a little bit in terms of your background and being in the environment that you're in, it's interesting. A lot of people probably feel, coming from outside and having not grown up observant, a little bit of a fish out of water. Do you feel like a fish out of water with your own story, or how have you, this probably didn't just happen overnight. Was there something in your growing up that you felt was sort of leading you to this, if you can look back?
I grew up in what's known as a modern Orthodox community, part of what's called Woodmere, New York, 5 towns. So if you're familiar with what that means, then great. If you're not familiar, then great. But essentially, it's Orthodox but modern. So essentially, what my background gave me the ability to interact with all different parts of the spectrum of Judaism. Meaning, grew up in a place where you had people that were secular, and then you had people who were ultra-Orthodox. So growing up in that and going to different types of camps and different types of schools throughout the years gave me the ability to interact with all different walks of life. So it's not really a fish out of water, meaning, I grew up in a more modern place. So when people ask, how do you know music, and how do you know movies, and how do you know this, that, the other? It's just because that's how I grew up. I grew up with that stuff. Happens to be I was Shomer Shabbos. I kept Shabbos. I kept kosher and that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I was very much living in a very similar world to those who grew up in a secular lifestyle.
Amazing. What really keeps you fired up after, over a decade in this kind of work, which is, I kind of compare it to a emergency room doctor, where you're kind of always on and always dealing with new people. But what keeps you going after all this time?
Okay, so the truth is, I don't know what you're doing currently in terms of this. I guess on my show I'll interview you, but
exercising a lot.
Yeah, there's a serious burnout that can occur when a person's involved in anything in life that they're not watching and taking care of themselves. So I went through that process. It was a gradual process that just teaching and teaching and teaching and running and running and running and teaching and teaching and teaching was nice for everybody else, but for me it was hitting a point where I wasn't able to do it. So I slowly but surely, what happened is I ended up, again, this is every question you're asking is a lot of discussions, but what I ended up doing is cutting back a little bit on the teaching and focusing a lot more in terms of myself, of studying and learning, not only giving over, but actually learning something. You know, there's a classic idea that a well-fed mother is a better mother. So if you're just giving to your kids and giving to your kids and giving to your kids, but you never give to yourself, so you'll only be able to take that for so long. And what happened was, when I started in 2006 is when I started. So until about 2013, 14, 7, 8 years, I was just giving. And I wasn't, in 2014, I did a major shift in my life, which is this whole discussion of itself again. But as Rabbi Tatz would say, but that's not for now, Scott. Okay, but basically.
No, that's amazing. Can you dig into that? I mean, I've been there, and I think a lot of people, if they've been in the in that field for, I mean, really any field that they love doing, what did it look like for you when you were starting to experience burnout? Was it just general negativity that you didn't know how to pinpoint, or is it, just kind of talk to me? I love it.
It's a lot of things. It affected my relationship with my spouse. It affected my relationship with my kids. It affected my relationship with myself. When a person is not taking stock of what's going on and just living and just going and, living in the rote and routine, and you don't stop for a moment to think, like, is this healthy? I remember once giving a class about the importance of being there for your family.
Yeah.
And then my daughter calling me and saying, when are you coming home?
Like, I'm busy, I'm working.
Exactly. And I'm like, well, right now I'm busy telling other people they should be home.
Right.
Right. And that was, for me, that was a crazy thing. And I also looked into the Chazal tell us, the sages tell us, Ezehu Chacham, who's a wise person, is Haroa es Anolad. One is one who learns from all people, but another statement is someone who sees the future. I was able to look at other people in the field that I am in, that are many years older than me, and see that they're doing the same thing they've been doing for the past 20, 30 years, and they haven't really revamped or refreshed anything, something new. So when you don't do something new, you become old. And when I say you become old, I don't mean that people aren't going to like you and whatever. But what I mean is that you yourself don't have that same vitality and that same push and that same drive and the same tenacity and the same excitement. And you burn out. That's it. You have to keep things new. Things have to be fresh and new. If you don't have freshness and newness, you grow old of it, you get burnt out of it, and you're done. So I would hope that wouldn't happen. So therefore, I cut back a lot. And I ended up now. And right now, currently, I learn a lot more personal Torah, Chavrusa, study partners. And that in and of itself has totally changed. It's been a game changer for me.
That's unbelievable. Do you, I guess, I've experienced that. It's a very long process for me as well. And feeling that you are somewhat of a hypocrite when you are telling people stuff and then realizing that you're going to get literally, I'm going to just burn from my own sheet or being played back to me when they're, kind of recording my life. It's a rough feeling. But so when you started learning, do you have an idea about how you're going to go about re-engaging? And also, like, these guys that have been around for such a long time who are so, for me, so central to what the outreach movement looks like. How do they do it for 30 years? And again, I feel like in a lot of ways it's somewhat up to people like yourself and possibly me to figure out how do we redo it so that it doesn't come across as stale, because it's had a long shelf life.
Well, I'll tell you, a lot of this has to do with people's backgrounds. So I come from a background which is a little more modern, but then as I developed myself after high school, or some would say during high school, depends, difference of opinion. Some say I was asked to leave, others say I went early admissions. Anyway, so when I came to Eretz Yisrael when I was 17 years old. And when I came as, again, we'll call it the post-high school yeshiva. after studying for a few years, I then ended up going to another more serious yeshiva, which I was learning full time. And coming from a background of, again, it's not a secular background, so I knew everything. I knew Hebrew, I know how to read, etc. So I was going into some serious learning for 12 to 15 hours a day. That was my background. Mm-hmm. When you go from 12 to 15 hours a day of learning, and then you shift everything and go to 12 hours a day of teaching, it's just a shock to the system. And it didn't shock me for a couple of years because I was too busy to notice it. Mm-hmm. Other people, they don't have that background. So since they don't have that background, the only thing they know is teaching. And therefore, they just do that. And they continue doing that forever. And they're able to continue on with it, whatever it may be. I just know, again, everyone has to know how they deal with themselves. I just know personally that I remember people ask me, what are you going to do? Because I basically, again, there's stories and stories and stories, but I basically quit everything. I just shut down.
Really? You're saying you just told people you were done, or you just like stopped showing up, or what was that like?
No, I didn't. I wasn't totally responsible.
So good.
Responsible. I mean, I spoke to a bunch of people about it. My wife was a tremendous player, and I spoke with some rabbanim about it, of the if, when, how, etc. So I gave in my notice of, this can't go on in the format that it's going on now. I have to make some changes. And I was teaching in a number of places. I quit everything. I went cold turkey. And people said to me, so what are you going to do? What's your plan? And no one believed me when I said, I don't really have a plan. So they said to me, well, what do you mean? What are you going to do? I said, oh no, I just know I can't do this. Rav Noah Weinberg, a blessed memory, used to have, he gives an example, if you know his 48 ways. And I think it's in, I don't even know where it is, but I think it's in way number 4, because that's the only one that I actually know. I'm getting fired now that I said that, but it's called Introduce Yourself to Yourself. And he gives a mashal about a person who's going on a train and they're going the wrong way. And sometimes in life, we find ourselves going the wrong way. And imagine you're talking with someone on the train saying, hey, how's everything going? And then they say, oh my gosh, I think I'm going the wrong way. And you say, well, maybe you should get off the train. They say, nah, I already paid for the ticket. I might as well keep going. You think you're so foolish, right? If you're going the wrong way, get off the train. But how many of us live our lives the wrong way? And at some point we wake up and we realize we're going the wrong way. Someone's like, so why don't you get off the train? You say, nah, I already paid for the ticket. It's easier. It's more comfortable just to continue what you're doing. So see, people say, so where are you going to go? I said, listen, I don't know where I'm going to go, but there's one thing I do know. I'm going the wrong way. So which train am I going to take? Not sure. But I know I have to get off this one quick because it's about to be a train wreck. So recognize these ideas, and you have to stop yourself. You have to stop. Again, I'm not such a practical person, so I can't really give advice on this and tell people, hey, just quit your jobs. Don't worry about the fact. I mean, I'm married and I have kids. People wouldn't believe me when I say that, but yes, I did it in a way which had a little bit of a buffer of a couple months. And then, thank God, I'm a firm believer of that if you really do an evaluation of what the right thing is for you and your family, then things will fall into place. And thank God, by making these decisions, things have changed drastically for the better, much better, because of the fact that I ended up now. Did I know what was happening? I just knew I had to stop what was happening there. Can't speak for anybody else. I could just say that if you're doing something which is destroying you, you should probably stop destroying yourself. That's pretty obvious. As one of my rabbis used to tell me, common sense is not that common.
It's not at all. And I think that pressure, and I guess you said you can't, don't tell other people what they can do, but how did you talk to yourself? First of all, you have, such a high profile, and I think that you are such an effective person at portraying Judaism in a way that speaks to the younger generation. You know what I'm saying? When I was on campus, my skin would crawl when the 90% of people would talk to my students, and I always felt comfortable, leaving them with you, and it was not, and they would feel great about it. No, honestly. And
nice
so, no, I'm saying that, of the people that, maybe does it sound like I'm full of myself? Could be I'm full of myself. Of the people that I trust, you are one of the very few, and so it must be that other people see that, and they know that you have this ability to connect with people and to make Judaism fun and palatable and interesting. So it probably for you gave you a tremendous, what you're doing is really important. Not everyone always feels that. So how did you manage to balance your own needs, which was that I can't keep doing this, with the external pressure of, we need you to do this? And also, how did you, start with that.
Well,
How did you talk yourself through that?
Again, it wasn't so much, it wasn't so much oh no, what am I going to do? I'm needed, and now I'm leaving people behind, so to speak. I was beyond that. I was at a point of, sorry. Yeah, like, sorry. I'm pushing myself, but then I'm going to be more than burnt out, and that's not a good situation. Once you hit past burnt out, you get crispy, you know what I'm saying? Once you get extra crispy, you're done, and then you get a negative taste. You get a negative taste and interested. I never had a problem with the teaching and with that kind of stuff. The problem that I had was exactly like you said. My study partner, he says to me, my chavrusa, he said, be very careful about what you teach, because you're a big mekatrig on yourself. You're prosecuting yourself. If you teach, you said, we're going to be playing the tapes of our classes, down
you can't pretend you didn't know that. I don't know. What is that? I didn't say that. Right.
Exactly. So it's like it's going to get nailed. And here I am talking about growth and about Torah learning and about becoming greater and bigger. And tell me, honestly, when did I grow? When have I grown over the past 10 years? And it's very scary. You have to do what you got to do. You got to do what you got to do. And if it's going to be leaving, so to speak, somebody behind, like we mentioned before, if a mother doesn't eat, she's going to pass out. So it's so nice, it's so nice how much you care and love and want to give. But if you don't sleep and you don't eat, and in my opinion, like you said, fish out of water, there's a very apropos mashal to Rabbi Akiva, the mashal story, the Medrash brings down that basically a Jew without Torah is like a fish without water. So you take a fish out of the water, they die. And I literally got to a point where I was feeling I'm not learning anything. And a lot of people are not going to like me for saying what I'm about to say, but, well, what do you mean? When you prepare for classes, you're learning, right? You're learning because you're preparing for classes. And okay, that I'm not going to take away from that. It's true. You are learning something. But if you're giving the same classes that you gave 10 years ago, then you're not preparing for classes anymore, which means you're not learning, which means you have no water and there's no oxygen. You start to fall and burn. In Kiruv, they say the classic thing is that when you're a Kiruv professional, you're like a broom, right? You sweep up everything, you clean everybody up, and you end up very dirty, right? Yeah. So if you're not cleaning yourself up constantly, then it's a problem. So now I found a happy medium. I'm learning. I'm involved in my own, and with my family and with my kids, with my wife. We say it differently. With my wife, with my kids, and also I'm teaching. So I worked out a happy medium of what's going on, and I try to do as much as I can in every realm. But for me, it's tremendous. You have to keep learning, studying, growing yourself. If you're not growing yourself, you're done.
That's amazing. So what does your schedule look like now? And have you found that as a result of what you're doing, you are more effective, or you found yourself surviving? Are you back to thriving? Like, how does that, I guess you said it was a 3-year transition from kind of the burnout point to where you are now. Do you feel like you're kind of through it, or are you still in the process of kind of getting back to normal?
Well, I'll tell you, for those who have seen me teach, I'm a very crowd-oriented talker and speaker, teacher. I feed off the energy of the people. So I've never been burnt out where I'm teaching and there's a good crowd. There's a good crowd, I'm totally on it, If there's a bad crowd, then I would like to leave sooner than later, Basically, when you ask, so what does it look like now a little bit? Is it more effective, less effective? First of all, I have created such a bigger, vast, deeper, library of information because I've been learning. So I know a lot more than I did a couple of years ago. 3-4 years ago is, against transition. I just have a lot more material. I have more to share. I have more to give over because I've tapped back into the wellspring of where everything's coming from. So when you're learning and learning and learning, then you stop. So then you only have what you have. But if you keep drawing from the well, so you're going to be more effective. That's just the reality of it. Now, just simply to go back to the idea of you saying before about being effective in terms just straight up as a teacher, I don't know if I'm effective or not. I have no idea. It's hard to know what's the gauge of called being effective. If someone walks out and enjoyed it, doesn't mean it was necessarily effective. Has there been growth or change in their life? Have they been affected in a way where then they feel more positive towards something than negative? They're very different gauges of what's going on. I just know personally the way that I teach is just very straight up real. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you like I'm talking to you right now. I'm talking to a crowd. There's no difference. This is not like I'm getting up to lecture and have a discussion that's going on between the whole thing. It's straight up, let's talk about life. Let's discuss things. Let's work it through. Let's think a little bit, right? And when you do that, then hopefully it opens up people to be able to change the way that we're living and for the better. My schedule looks a little bit very different than it was. It used to be I'm running like crazy from class to class to class. And during the heavy seasons, which is right now, the fellowship seasons, familiar with this world, it's back to that a little bit. But I'm not there full time anymore. We used to be there the whole day, 9 to 6. Now it's broken up a little bit more, and I get to learn with again a study partner with a couple other guys that I learn with, and so it's a mixture. I got a mix of teaching and learning, and I can actually get to see my kids a little.
That's beautiful and very important.
Yeah, they're still young. They still love me, so that's good.
Do you think I one of the things that's so interesting that I kind of experienced as I was going through that sort of being that figure and then having to recognize that things aren't working, that you can't show up the way that you used to show up for either because of the, for us as a lot of the family considerations also, but it was terrifying to articulate that you couldn't or wanted to do something. I felt like I was very not real. And I feel like I'm sort of finding my own honesty now when I go and speak to people about what I can or can't do. Have you found that?
Rav Noah Weinberg asked me when I started teaching at Aish, he asked me the very first time I met him, he said to me a couple of things, but one of the main things he said, so yeah, you're teaching in the beginners program in Aish HaTorah, you're teaching in the essentials program. Tell me, do you do what you teach? And when he said that, I said, ouch. I said, sometimes yes, sometimes no. Now, I'll tell you where it came out even more was recently I was on a plane and I'm sitting next to some Israeli guy and we were just talking about stuff. And of course, because you open up to the random people on planes more than your own spouse, there's random stuff. And
I'm deeply unhappy right now. I'm like, oh, okay.
Then you get off the plane and you realize he's your new boss. The guy said to me, so are you effective in your teaching? Do you do what you teach? And I said to him, you know what? I don't know if you've seen this in your teaching. I know in my teaching, when you teach something enough times, it actually starts to have an impact on you that you think about doing it. And then over time, you actually start to do it. I've come to terms with a lot of things that my teaching approach very much now is, I don't think it ever was a top-down approach, but if it was, it certainly shifted. Guys, I'm not talking to you like I'm doing this and you're not. Guys, I'm talking to you like I messed up this morning and we got to get in shape here, right? Like I gave a marriage class the other day and I said, I'm not talking to you as if I know that I'm perfect, that I'm doing the right thing. I'm telling you, don't do this. You know how I know you shouldn't do this? Because I just did it 20 minutes ago, right? We make mistakes and be real with it. You just got to be real. You got to be a real person. None of this baloney and fakeness and having to live up to people's expectations. That's all self-esteem issues that have to be worked out, right? You have to know who you are and recognize. And people, I think, personally I do, relate to reality. When you're real with them, and they're willing to listen.
Okay, here let's take this one out of the closet because this is something I struggled with a great deal. The idea of showing yourself as a real person and where that fits into effective teaching and what is that like? I think that there's such a I don't again I've been in Jewish education my entire career, so it's not like I can really draw from a lot of other stuff, but there's this perception that you have to give off to sort of toe the party line. And you don't, again, it's on both sides. You don't want the people that you're trying to influence to think negatively about you, God forbid, right? And on the other hand, you don't want the people that you're representing that you falsely represent them as a whole. So how do you walk that line of being, I guess how do you wind up being real? I have this thing with fitness where I don't do it because it's exercise. I love fighting. I love lifting weights, and it's getting to that awkward point where people are noticing I'm not doing it just because to be healthy, but you actually have muscles, right? So I for the longest time felt like I could never share that with anyone in the Orthodox world or even anyone interested in the Orthodox world because I felt like it wasn't fitting. But what I find is the more I open up about that, first of all, now everyone I talk to is speaking in weightlifting analogies for spirituality, but also people are like, yeah, that's really cool. We were thinking about that, but we could never say it.
So listen to this. There's a famous story about somebody who came to the Chafetz Chaim, of blessed memory, and they asked the Chafetz Chaim, they said, listen, I'm becoming about tshuva, I'm becoming religious, and I wanted to know, should I be Hasidish or should I be Litvish? Should I be what type should I be? And the Chafetz Chaim said, when you die and you get upstairs, God's not going to ask you, were you Hasidish or were you Litvish? He's going to open up a Torah and he's going to say, tell me, did you follow my Torah? If the answer is yes, great. If the answer is no, let's call it less great. Bottom line is we have to stop being so caught up with, oh no, what are they going to think about me because it's out of the norm and whatever it may be. It's true you don't want to look like a weirdo, right? And you shouldn't be. There's an idea, Besoch Ami Ani Yosef, I'm part of my nation. I'm not different and I'm not trying to be different. I'm not trying to be arrogant. You have to know yourself though. If you enjoy with lifting weights, if that's something that you enjoy and it helps you let off steam. It helps you relax. It helps you, it's a chilling method for you. So then fantastic. Then go for it. The problem would be if you're lifting weights because you need to impress certain people. That's another story, another discussion. But if you're doing it because, hey, I've been doing this for 20 years, 30 years. I grew up in a home of fitness or I got into it when I was younger for whatever the reasons are. And now this is just something which I enjoy doing. It helps me. Great, then go for it. You understand? Again, it's just about being real. Be a normal person. One of my rabbis used to always say to me, when I was in yeshiva, when I was 17, I had long hair. Now, again, I grew up religious. I wasn't like one of these punk rockers, but I'm a musician, and I had longer hair, and I had one of these big yarmulkes that covered like this over here, like Karlbach style. And my rabbi used to say to me every day, be normal. Be normal. And you know what? On the one hand, I'm like, what does that mean, normal? What are you talking about? It's on the inside that what counts, Okay, all that garbage. All that stuff. Anyway, so at the end, it turns out that, I wasn't being normal. It was a self-esteem thing. It's, I was 17. I wanted to show myself and be something and whatever. But you know what? You're allowed to lift weights. There's no isser in lifting weights. A person's allowed to be healthy, allowed to do whatever. And you don't have to say, I'm lifting weights. And let me explain why. Because it's like a Rambam.
Right.
And it's like, the Torah, and it's like the whatever. Listen, we don't lift weights for the sake of lifting weights. But it's something which helps me and I enjoy it. If someone turned to you, what would one of my students say? Well, crack cocaine helps me also. Right?
Okay, all right.
Listen, you got to make a parnassa somehow.
Exactly.
Move to Denver. No, but I'm saying obviously don't. You can't be over an issur in the Torah. But you have to be real with yourself and recognize. Don't feel guilty. Don't feel guilty about oh no, what am I doing? I'm doing something different than somebody else. When people do that, you have to realize it's usually we're projecting. What are people going to think about us and whatever? And most people don't even care. They don't even care. Live your life. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy. Learn Torah. Teach Torah. Study. Grow. Jog. Lift weights. Be healthy. That's it. Awesome. You don't have to turn everything into a double thumber. You know what I'm saying? That
right.
To be summer. That's my opinion. It could be I'm going to go to Cherem because of this, but that's
I'll be there with you. We'll work out. Let me ask you a question. Two final questions, really. Question number one: do you have one specific memory of? I saw Rav Noach when he would just buy flowers on Shabbos, Erev Shabbos. I didn't know him well, but do you have one memory of him that really impacted you?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I came towards the end of his life. So when he passed away in 2009, I came in 2006, and in the middle of July of 2006. So I didn't have that much, unfortunately, of a connection. I imagine it's unfortunate. It sounds like it's unfortunate. But for me, what I saw, and a lot of it more of what I heard, but what I saw was that he was a real person. He wasn't someone who just went with what everybody else said to do. He was a normal person. He had his ups and his downs. He had his attempts and his failures and his, so for me to see someone who really wants to grow in a way, if this is wrong, let me try something new. If that's wrong, let me try something else to it. I'm not often stuck to the fact of what people are going to think about me. That's something which has been impressive. But again, I didn't have as much of a connection as others as that. That's that.
Okay, awesome. Now that you and I are both old and been doing this for over a decade, what do you feel like is for you, like what, besides the learning and the teaching, which is exciting, do you feel like there is big changes coming? What's working? Is there a shift? Like when you think about the big impact you want to have over the span of your life, and I feel like, for me, certainly, I'm just kind of getting started, as crazy as it is, because I keep trying to retire. What do you feel like is the future where you can really position yourself in a way that's using your full abilities? Like where is Klal Yisrael needing? Like what do they need, and what do you feel like is the most effective way to go about addressing that? It's a short question. It's easy. That's easy. We have that. Come on, it's nothing.
If you could find the answer to that question, I'd love to hear it.
Okay.
I don't know. I'll tell you. I'll just tell you like this. When people ask me, so what's it like being Kiruv? Like you're a Kiruv professional and all those kind of things. Here's the bottom line. You, my friend, have been involved in Kiruv in a much more intense and real way than I have. You know what I'm talking about. I'm sitting in a yeshiva. Guys come into me. I'm not out in the front lines. I'm not, walking up to people on campuses. I'm not living in San Diego in La Jolla, chilling. You know what I say, right? Others on La Jolla or in Tijuana for vacations. But I'm not out there. I'm a teacher. That's the way I look at myself. I'm not a Kiruv professional. I'm a teacher. I'm a facilitator of those who are interested in growth. That's number one. What's going to be, what's effective ways, what needs to be done, I really don't know. We got to daven like crazy that Klal Yisrael it gets closer. I personally think that there's a big shift in terms of people waking up and realizing that it's not just a world of quote unquote the secular, but it's very much a world of the frum. In other words, Rav Noach himself, his goal was to get the frum on board and then the secular. I think, and then he went backwards, the secular and then frum, and I think that's what's happening. We're seeing people that are quote unquote living as religious Jews, but are not so connected. And that to me is more frightening than the fact that, again, please forgive me for my cherem statement here, but that's more frightening than intermarriage for me. In other words, you have people that, secular people grow up in a secular world and they get intermarried. Of course they're going to do it. That's the norm.
What's wrong with that, right?
But if you have, it's not right, it's wrong, but that's
it's expected. That's you don't.
It's an unfortunate reality that's going on.
Right.
But when you have people that are growing up in religious homes and in religious communities, and they themselves are not feeling enough of a connection or having enough knowledge to be able to want to pursue that for me is scary. And I think that needs to be taken into account in a serious way, where we could deal with what I like to call parents at risk. And parents at risk means not the kids. It's the parents that don't have a real connection to Yiddishkeit in a way which trickles down into the children. And if everybody would work on themselves in a way, let me feel connected, it would trickle down into the family, into the communities, into the societies. I know it didn't really answer the question. So
that was exactly the question. So what do you think what do we do about that? How do we do about that?
I'll tell you, it's not a simple question. I just asked my Talmidim in Asia. I have a bunch of guys that I learned with, and I asked them, tell me, is there any hope for American Jews that are like, let's say religious kids that are in 9th and 10th, 11th, 12th grade. And they basically said to me, listen, until we got to Israel, it was very hard for us to feel any sort of connection because you're involved in the world you're involved with. It's a very, very, very difficult thing. There needs to be I don't know what to say.
Yes.
I wish what it was is that we had sleeper cells in every community that we can call to action, that are in every school, that is loving, supportive, caring, knowledgeable, and want to impart that knowledge and pass that on. But the reality is we don't necessarily have that right now. But I think there are people that are working on it. There are people that are working on training teachers, etc. What will be? Hashem ya'azor, Hashem ya'azor, ani lo yodeh, habibi. But God willing, it'll be good.
Okay, great. Where can people find you if they wanted to follow up with you, or you try not to be found?
I'm in Israel.
Okay, it's good.
No, if people want to find
the guy with the beard and the white shirt.
Yeah, people are looking for classes of mine and stuff like that. I don't have any particular. I mean, I'm on YouTube, Chas v'Shalom, but if you look on YouTube and search Gavriel Friedman or Rav Gav or something like that. For those who don't like to visit YouTube, you can go to a website called Hidabrut. I have a bunch of videos up there for people who don't like that or don't remember that name because it's too long. There's something called Torah Anytime. I'm on Torah Anytime also. For those who want to follow me on Twitter, I don't have it, so you can't. But I actually have it, but I don't, whatever. For those who want to be in contact, my email is ravgav@gmail.com.
All right. I really appreciate you taking the time. This is very, very fantastic. There you have it, folks, another inspiring episode. If you enjoyed this, I ask you to please share this with your friends and to like us over on Rabbi Rupp through Facebook or on YouTube. And the more that we're able to get these important messages out, the more that we can really make an impact in the world. So I encourage you, please, to stay tuned. We have a ton of amazing speakers coming up, and also to tell your friends about it. Thank you very much.